Hi there, my name is Aaron Short. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today is Monday, March the 7th. I hope everyone is doing well. I have another guest today, and we're going to talk about buying and selling guitars. And based on what I heard in the chat yesterday, several people have been buying. I'm not sure about selling, but I think people have been buying guitars this week. Are you one of them? Without further ado, let's bring on Jim. How you doing, Jim?
I'm doing really well. I'm excited to be here. It's nice to be talking about something that I do on a very regular basis. So any help I could be to people would be a big plus.
Well, it's great to meet you. I've been watching you since I saw your videos on the Quad Cortex, I think. And I like what you do.
That would make sense.
You're posting a lot of content. I've put your link in the chat. So if you're watching this and enjoy it, please go and check out Jim's channel as well. It's Audiomo Music. Actually, I wanted to ask you, what does Audiomo mean?
I'm not very good at naming things, but that one I think I got right. It actually just means it's a modern audio just combined into a thing. It's what I came up with when I was in business school. So
very cool. Very cool.
Just stuck.
All right, let's say hi to our friends in the chat, and then we're going to start this off. This is all about buying and selling guitars today, and I'd like to invite people in the chat to tell us if they've been buying guitars, selling guitars, if they've got any tips for us. I got some friends from back in the UK that have often given me tips about buying used, and I didn't listen to them, and lately I have been buying more used stuff, so hopefully we can share that advice and thoughts with the chat, and also the chat with us as well. Let us know what you think about buying and selling guitars. Have you bought and sold a guitar recently? Have you got any success stories, anything we should be aware of? Please let us know. Rosanna is here. She says, hi, Aaron, everyone in the chat. Happy Monday. Happy Monday to you, Rosanna. Thanks for moderating today. Bernard Smith's in Suffolk, UK. David Belcher's here. Good afternoon, Aaron and Jim and everyone in the chat. I hope you are having a good Monday. And BMO's, hello all, watching from 8 hours north of New York City. What are you doing up there, BMO? Are you buying a guitar or are you selling a guitar? Jim, another Jim. A late winter hello from the Green Mountain State, where the sap is flowing and boiling. Very nice. Patty Smith says hi to everyone. Good day to everyone in the chat. And Charlie says hello, Aaron. Hello, Charlie. How are you doing today? It's great to see you. All right. Let's get started then. I'm going to start with buying. We've got 1 hour for this, okay? So I'm going to start with buying. So, buying new or buying used? What should people be doing, in your opinion, Jim?
It depends entirely on what model you're trying to buy. For example, with offset guitars, they're very popular right now. And an example of that would be like the Jaguar, the Jazzmaster, and the Mustang. Those guitars new, you don't have a ton of options, so you're kind of forced into buying them used unless you want kind of a compromise or a modernish kind of version of them. But with guitars like Strats and Telecasters, and Les Pauls too, I would absolutely recommend used 100% of the time. You just have to find a shop that you're really comfortable with.
Okay. I guess the pro of buying new that I hear from a lot of people is you get a warranty. Obviously, that depends on the brand, right? And everything else. And then the pro of buying used is that you get the buyer has taken the hit on the purchase. It's like buying a new car, isn't it? Once you drive the car off the lot, you're down a few $1,000 when you buy a brand new car. So I guess they're the two things. And that's something I'd like to ask the chat as well, what they think about that. What do you do in the chat? How do you buy? I always bought new because I used to feel like back in 2015, I felt like, well, I want to be the first player, the first owner. I want to be shiny and new out of the box and have that warranty and all these kind of things. Like the last couple of years, I bought several guitars used and got really, really good deals. And I also came to realize, Jim, that like I just said, as soon as I take the guitar out of the case, I'm probably going to scratch it or something anyway. And let me throw this in here as well, because I talk a lot about acoustic guitars. I forgot to ask you, actually, do you buy and sell acoustic guitars or only electric right now?
Only electric. I own 2 acoustic guitars, but I don't rebuy and sell those. No.
So why don't you buy and sell acoustic? I'm curious.
Well, part of it has to do with just the fragility of them and shipping from the climate that I'm in right now, especially in the winter. During the summer, I'm a little more open to it, but as you're probably well aware, when people are impatient and they open something that is in a freezing climate, immediately all sorts of things can go wrong, even with electric guitars, but on an acoustic, you can structurally damage it, and it's just, it's not something I like to deal with.
That's a good point to throw in, though. I didn't even think of that. Like acoustic versus electric, very different thing to consider. Let me put this in though. I've bought and sold so many acoustic guitars. I've not had. I want to keep knocking on wood today because I've not had a problem. I've actually had more problems in the last few months with fret sprout on electric guitars.
Which models? Is it Fenders?
My Acoustasonic had fret sprout, and then I got the viewers want me to check. They talk about Thomann. What are they called? Thomann guitars.
Yeah, I know who they are. The German distributor.
Their brand. The
Harley Benton.
Harley Benton. Yeah. So yeah. I got two of those. The one with the fusion guitar had stainless steel frets. That's been fine, but the frets were really rough, and I had to polish them for about 3 hours. And then the Strat that I got from them was absolutely fine out of the box, but it got fret sprout within about 3 weeks. And then so I've actually not just Fenders. I've had it on several guitars. I think for me that's the biggest thing with electric guitars, the fret sprout. That's been more of a problem for me than acoustic guitars cracking. But I've also come to realize that it's quite a small job to have done, and it cost me $30 to have that rectified. So it's not a big deal.
And one thing that I think a lot of people should consider doing is learning and investing in the time needed to do these things on your own. Because when you can polish frets on your own, it's not that difficult to kind of smooth out fret edges and things like that. And it can make a gigantic difference between the playability of a guitar out of the box and, with that half hour, or in your case, 3 hours worth of work, but it's well worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I probably could have done the frets myself as well, like on the side. So to be fair to Thomann, they paid to have that job done on the guitar. Which is fair enough, and the guy I go to here is really great, and he did a great job. So yeah, I guess the thing about buying used is sometimes these issues have already appeared and been fixed, because I've done that on guitars as well. For example, let's take the Harley Benton Strat as an example. I really got it to review on the channel, right? So if I want to sell that on, and I've just done if I polish those frets on that guitar as well, because they're quite rough too, and I've had a professional do the frets and file them down. If I now sell that after I make the review for what I paid for it, I've basically, what I'm trying to say, I've done the work for the next buyer. And if I sell it to them at a loss to me, am I crazy, Jim? Or is this...
No, you're not crazy, and I've done the same thing. I've done it multiple times. The thing with those guitars, and especially right now, what's important, if you're going to do something like that, and this doesn't just apply to people like us who do YouTube, and you buy the guitar. I have a Harley Benton that's, you're not going to see it. It's a Telecaster that I actually filmed for today. That's going to be tomorrow's video. But when you're reselling these things, one thing that you should try to do is take the shipping out of the equation, because it's going to cost so much more money to ship one of these guitars that it's just more loss out of the actual sale itself. So yeah, it's a good deal to get one of these directly from Thomann for $200, $210 shipped to your door. But then, when you put the money in, like you said, afterwards, when you're reselling it, even if you sell it for what you paid, the $200, first of all, you're at a loss for the work you put in, obviously. And then you're going to eat whatever fees the website that you choose to sell on takes from you, plus the shipping. You might end up with maybe $100 in your pocket. So if you're going to work on guitars like in kind of that price range, and that's the same thing for even Classic Vibe Squires, stuff like that, I would highly recommend waiting it out and selling them locally.
All right, so yeah, well, I'll save that for the selling part, because selling locally has been a bit of a challenge for me lately as well. But we'll get onto that. So cool. Back to buying new then. But there's as we go along, we're adding these points in, and I think they're really valid points, because I just thought of that as we were talking, and that's why I said I'm crazy, because as I say it out loud, I'm like, what the heck am I doing here? I'm like vetting guitars for people, improving them, and then putting them out into the world and helping other people out. Maybe it's a good thing to do. So where did we cover this? Where do we buy from? Where should people be looking? I mean, obviously everyone looks on Sweetwater and Reverb, by default, these kind of places, and they're great. Are there places that we should look aside from that when we're buying a guitar?
Absolutely. There are a few that I go to on a regular basis every single day, and I refresh them throughout the day because the inventory will change. The best place in America, in my opinion, to buy a used electric guitar is Dave's Guitar Shop. They have 2 locations, I believe. They're both in Wisconsin, but they get in mint stuff. Their prices are all flat rated, so you're getting something like, for example, if you wanted to buy a PRS SE Custom 24, I think that's almost like $1,000 new. They'll ship it to your door for $650, and it's just, that's their normal price. It doesn't matter what the finish is or anything like that. They give a lot of stock of really good stuff, and that's where I get my Fender custom shops. I don't buy those new because the prices are so crazy, but when you buy them a place like Dave's, they give such a discount that it would be the same to buy one of those used as it cost as the brand new Fender that's a production model next to it. I paid the same for both of those guitars, and one was, hand built. So I highly recommend Dave's Guitar. I know that you have some people that watch from the UK. There is a shop called Gas Station Guitars. Now, if you look on their Reverb, they might seem a little bit pricey, but if you actually call them, and I know this because I've recommended them to people that I know that come into my channel that are from various places in Europe, if you call them, they work pretty well with deals and stuff like that. It's fantastic. Yeah, like right there, that's a semi-hollow CE24. That's a $2,500 guitar, new right now, something like that. They flat rated at that price, the $1,530. It's really, 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 really something else how good Dave's Guitar Shop is. I can't recommend them enough.
Wow, this is new to me. So why are these prices so good?
Because they just moved that much inventory. If you watch it, even if you just go back for a week, you will see all these guitars, for the most part, they're just going to be gone. And they have a really close relationship with Paul Reed Smith in specific. So that's a brand that, especially if you like them, they're the place to go to. I saw yesterday one of those new S2 2408s, which is a $1,950 guitar. It was up for $1,200. It was brand new, not a ding on it. They provide all the details, including the weight. On the higher end models, they'll provide the actual neck thickness at the 1st fret and the 12th fret. They're pros. They're real pros, and they're great people to talk to too. They will work with you.
Oh, look at this. Excuse me.
Yeah, I saw that.
So yeah, I mean these are older, so this one's got a few dings on it. But yeah, a guitar like this on Reverb would be 2 minimum, up to about 3. I think I saw one on Guitar Center for 3,000. So
yep. Between 25 and 3,000 for the Mayor is the normal price on Reverb.
Yeah. So that's really crazy. How did you find out about Dave's Guitar Shop? I've not really heard about them before.
Just playing around. I actually stopped in there randomly when we
where
were out
are they?
around.
Where are they based?
The one was in Madison, Wisconsin. So I had heard that there was a guitar shop that I had to check out because the guy had this crazy vintage collection, and he does. His vintage collection is, I've never seen anything like it before in my life in person. It's like a museum in many ways. But when I saw what they had on the floor and the prices, I bought my first real American vintage guitar from them. And it was a gold Jazzmaster that has, been with me ever since. And there's the majority of the guitars that I have are from Dave's. The prices are so good, the service is so good, and they're really upfront. You don't have to worry about something coming in and needing work on it unless it explicitly said so. But they go out of their way to not sell those guitars. They try to make sure that you're not going to have to call them after the fact, and I really like that about them.
So they do actually inspect the guitars and
Oh, yeah.
and check them over as well. They don't just get them in and sell them again. That's nice. Can you see what I'm doing here? I'm actually shopping while we're... Sorry, I have to apologize. I'm actually shopping here while we're talking.
This place will do it to you. And I'm telling you, I refresh it all the time. All the time. I refresh it all day.
Okay. Go away. Oh, hang on. I'm breaking everything here.
And it's gone. There we go. But now you learn something. Yeah, Dave's Guitar Shop is one of the best shops in the country.
That's really cool. Actually, their logo reminds me of another store. Are they affiliated with another store? Or am I confused?
No, but it does look familiar to me, and I can't put my finger on what it reminds me of, but I've always thought that ever since I first saw that logo. So
it reminds me of... I can actually I'll probably find it as we're going. But yeah, it reminds me of another store. But anyway, I don't want to get too far off the track here. All right. So talking about pricing, how do you negotiate on the price of a new guitar? And a question I sometimes hear is, should you negotiate on the price of a new guitar? What's your opinion? I mean, this is just opinion. So what's your opinion?
You should always try, because the worst that's going to happen is if you call them or you go into the shop directly, if you're lucky enough to have a store that stocks in, a lot of good stuff and they move enough inventory where they can make a deal with you. If you ask, the worst they say is no. But the best they say is, yeah, you know what? You're a good customer, or you know what, we can move this right now for a little bit less. We have a few extra. The thing is, it doesn't work on every model. Like, for example, anything limited edition, you're going to be hard pressed to get a deal. But even something like an American Professional 2, the prices on those just went up, but there are shops that you can still call where they'll give you 10 to 15% off of that new pricing. So they're out there. You have to take the initiative, and you can't be afraid. It's just like, when you go in to buy a car, a lot of people are intimidated by that. Granted, it's a lot more money, but they don't want to ask because they don't want to offend anybody, or, it can be awkward, but you shouldn't look at it like that. You're spending, in some cases, a pretty significant amount of money on an instrument, so why not try and get the best deal you can?
That's my thought as well. I've heard friends say, oh, should I ask for a discount? And I think you should say, what's the best price? I usually say, what's the best you could do, ship to me kind of thing, like the whole thing. And I think you're right. The worst they can say to you is no, we can't do anything right now, which is fair enough. So yeah, I think we should always ask. I think that's a good thing to do. Here's a question, because I've done this before. I've bought a Stratocaster and had a big upgrade done. I've had the Illich system installed in a Stratocaster. And I've also had acoustic guitars where I've put in Strat buttons and pickups and things. And I feel like sometimes that actually devalues the guitar. Where you think you're adding value, again, like I said earlier, I'm improving the instrument, I'm adding to the instrument, this is now worth more money. What happens to me is people come along and say, actually, that's not what I wanted. So I'm going to have to undo what you did. And therefore, you should sell it to me for the price it was actually at in the first place. Maybe even less, because now you've drilled a hole in there for a pickup, and it actually works completely against you. So what do you think about buying something like custom to you, or buying a guitar and kind of customizing it after the fact? Is that a bad idea, or what do you think?
If I really know I want that guitar, and it's not something that I'm buying to resell, I don't mind it, but I don't believe in, I'm kind of learned this lesson basically of what you've said, where you buy a production guitar like an American Standard Telecaster or Stratocaster, for example. You buy one of those, you put in a nice set of pickups like Lindy Fralins or something like that. You add in Strat blocks or whatever, you change the bridge or the tuners. When it comes time to sell it, unless you find somebody that has the exact same taste as you, you're going to lose even more money, because even if you put the guitar back to its original form, even if you didn't do something that wasn't reversible, you're going to lose the money on the parts anyways that you upgraded it with, because you're going to have to sell those or use those in a different guitar after the fact. So in some instances, it's good to do that. If you know exactly what you want, you might be able to get an even better deal if you're the buyer. But as the seller, that can get bad, and that can get bad real quick.
I think that's right, isn't it? If you know you're not going to resell it, like if you're buying the Strat of your dreams and you're going to add that system and you're going to add different changes and features that you definitely want, that's fine. But the minute you go to sell it, you've got to bear in mind that that's not really going to add to the value, unless you find someone that actually wants those features. But that's never happened to me. It's always been. And just be wary. I think a lot of buyers will try to use that against you. Like, hey, that's not the original, so therefore it's worth less. Well, at least that's my experience anyway. So just bear that in mind. And it was really interesting what you said about acoustic guitars. I want to just throw in, though, I've bought and sold so many acoustic guitars since 2015. I haven't, again, I keep knocking on wood, I have not had, have I had an issue with an acoustic guitar? No, I haven't. I think as long as you have a good case and you pack it well, and of course things can go wrong, and I always use like the reverb insurance. I mean, I don't want to think how much money I've spent on that over the years, but the thing about that is that that they are good. I had a situation with an amp a while ago, where the guy said it showed up and it was broken, but I couldn't really figure out exactly what had happened to it. And it was, but Reverb went in and said, look, what's the deal? And they paid to have the fixes made, and they agreed to that. So that was cool. Of course, you're right. Acoustic guitars are more fragile, but I'll just, this is all based on our experience, right? I've not had a problem with an acoustic guitar getting broken in shipping. So for me, it's not any different to electric, but of course, electric guitars are more durable than acoustic guitars in general.
I think part of it also has to do with the fact that I'm primarily an electric guitar player too. It's not even so much as like I go out of my way to not do acoustics for that reason, the fragility reason. It's just, I don't know. And I just prefer to deal with electric guitars. Like I have the acoustic guitar of my dreams, and I'm very fortunate for that. So I've never been, I don't shop for those. I never do, because I have a Gibson Custom Dove.
Nice. And do you smell the sound hole?
Faintly, but yes.
I gotta say, I sniffed a couple of Martins recently, and they don't smell the same. I wonder if people have been complaining about that overpowering smell, and they're diminishing the smell. These are the things I need to find out on this YouTube channel. Stay tuned.
Well, you know what? Stuff like that is actually really important to people. Not just with that, with Gibson too. One of the things that I think one of the reasons people still buy new Gibson guitars is because of that smell that you get when you open up one of those. It's unlike any other guitar. It's really its own thing. It's kind of cool.
Sometimes it's the case though. Sometimes the cases have a really strong smell too.
Oh yeah, it's caked into the case, and then it kind of, if you leave the guitar out of the case, the guitar will obviously lose it, but when you open the case back up again, you're like, oh, there it is, and it's very overwhelming smell.
Let me throw this in. That's actually made me think of something. I did get a really great deal on a really great guitar from a Guitar Center, and I was completely happy with it. I had it on this channel like a year ago. It was perfect apart from one little scratch on the back of the neck right up near the heel, and everything was fantastic, but that case had a really musty smell to it, and that was not pleasant. So actually, sometimes it's things you don't even think about with buying and selling guitars. Sometimes it's like, well, the guitar's great, but what's that weird smell? Oh, it's the case. Now I'm gonna have to throw that away and buy another case, or try to get the smell out of the case. So sometimes there's things like that which I never would have thought about before. But yeah, just the whole smelling thing just brought that to my mind.
Yeah, and that's something I've experienced, because the majority of the guitars that I buy are actually from overseas. When I'm buying to resell them, I buy them from Japan directly. And one thing that was very popular in the 1970s and the 1980s in Japan was chain smoking cigarettes. So you might find the most beautiful instrument, and it really still might be in great condition because they take really good care of their stuff. You open that, and it is just, oh man, it's the worst dive bar smell you've ever smelled in your life, and it's impossible to get rid of it. I have tried everything, and it's really disheartening when that stuff happens, but it has to be considered.
That's actually a really good point then to factor in. And I always put on mine a smoke-free, humidity-controlled environment, because that's what this is. That's worth thinking about. Yeah, I know this whole. I was saying the smell thing is kind of a joke, but now I think about it, it's actually really serious. You could get the guitar of your dreams and it stinks and you can't stand to play the thing because, yeah, that's a really good point. Now, you just made another point. So you buy to sell, right? Do you think that's...
yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. But do you think that's something people should get into? Do you think there's so many guitars out for sale now on the market. We're so flooded with gear. So do you think buying to selling is something that people should consider to do, or do you think people should buy because they want to buy a guitar for themselves? You've done it, so what are your thoughts on it?
I do it only because I stick to a very specific kind of selection of guitars. And I stick to it because I know that market like the back of my hand. And fortunately for me, and unfortunately for the rest of the market, and really if I was not knowing where to get things in Japan in specific here, when you look at some of these Japanese-made Fenders on Reverb, the prices of the offset ones are ridiculous. So what that allows me to do is I can go to Japan, buy it directly, have it come to me. I get to make a YouTube video of it. I clean the guitar up, and I get to undercut them by like hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So the guitars that I get sell almost instantly. They're getting a deal. I'm making a little bit of money, which helps me buy things like a Harley Benton that I don't mind losing $100 on after the fact, you know. But it really does all tie together. As far as would I recommend getting into it, You have to really, really pick a model or a factory, in my opinion, that you have a lot of trust in, that's not super accessible, because all of the mainline stuff, everybody else with the money's already gotten there. So you have to kind of find your own little niche, something that you know, and you know in and out, and when you can convey that and you know what to look for and kind of the pitfalls, because that can happen with any brand of guitar or any make of guitar. You can avoid those things. You can make a few dollars doing it, and then still, like I said, provide somebody with the value who doesn't want to take the risk of importing a guitar, because that is a very real risk. I've had guitars literally never show up, and then that's months later of dealing with DHL, and it's not fun. So it's not always a guarantee.
We should say, actually, I've been using DHL, actually not for guitars, but for other stuff recently. DHL is good to ship with, right? They're quite affordable.
Yes, but it depends. If you're the one receiving from DHL, it really depends on where or how your local office is, I would say. Because when I was, before I moved here, I was in San Diego, California. I would see DHL ships to Cincinnati first, and then it goes to its destination. And that's their main hub. Whenever I would see it was in Cincinnati, I knew that guitar would be at my door at 9 a.m. the next day. In Florida, it could be a week. It could be 2 weeks, it could be 3 weeks, or they could lose it. So it really just depends on how efficient the local office is. But when they're good, they're tough to beat.
Have you ever lost a guitar that you bought? Like it's not been delivered? And was that covered by insurance or not?
Well, no, in one of the instances. So when I moved here, I shipped a bunch of guitars to myself because obviously on the airplane, I was only allowed to bring one. And one of those guitars was a $4,000 guitar, and I insured it for $4,000. Now, this is a very important lesson that anybody can learn from this. They lost the guitar. Even though I insured it for the full amount, I had the receipts proving it was worth the value. I didn't have a UPS driver come and pick the guitar up from me. So even though I went to a franchised UPS store that, it has the logo, it wasn't like mom and pop's UPS shipping, we do that, they only insured $1,000 of it. So that was a hard lesson to learn. So if you're ever and this is another thing, if you're selling a guitar, if you're selling something over $1,000, schedule a UPS pickup, because that will ensure that the full value will be covered in the event of some damage or loss or something like that. And if you're not doing Reverb, especially, because like you said, Reverb's customer service, yeah, we complain about their fees, and they are pretty high, but they do take care of a lot of problems, and that's a nice peace of mind to have.
Yeah, that's why I like them. They really helped me out last time. Let's go to the chat and catch up with what people are saying, and then we'll come back to talk about selling guitars. Vic G says, hi, Aaron. Hello, Jim from sunny California. Marco says, hi. Marco, I was talking about you yesterday. Happy birthday for last week, my friend. Jim has a question. I'll come back to you in a second, Jim. Matthew Carver from Ohio. Good to see you, buddy. And yeah, I can remember Harley Benton. There we go. Chaz is here, says hi. Good to see you, Chazza. Marco said, just subscribe to Jim's channel.
Thank you, Marco.
Cool.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Marco. And lots of bots in here today. So Rosanna's working overtime, kicking out those bots. Thank you, Rosanna. Charlie says, I've only owned one new guitar in 55 years. It was a Taka acoustic guitar. I paid $50 and still have it and play it daily. Has aged perfectly. Still one of my favorites.
He wins.
I was actually going to end with that, Charlie. Like, should we even buy guitars in the first place? And I think you've just summed it up there. So we'll use that later on. It says manufacturer's suggested retail price. I always suggest they sell it cheaper. Yeah, MSRP. Yeah. The hippie's here. Good to see you, buddy. Saw you on your stream the other night. Good to see you. Says hit that thumbs up, folks. Yes, please do. I love the smell of my Martin. Amazing. See, smells are very important for guitars as well. That's why we need one of these. Okay. All right, you can stop now. Vic G, buying used is often a great deal and a great way to buy, until you have your first significant bad experience that burns and scars you from buying used again. Well, that is the thing, isn't it? If you buy from someone like Sweetwater, if there is an issue, their service is so great, they'll just take it back and everything's done, everything's fine. Buying used, even with someone like Reverb, you still might have to have a conversation with the seller, and you might find something later on. Like you said, Jim, you are good at repairing and maintaining guitars. What about? I know you said that we should all learn to do that, and I agree. And I've been doing more of that over the years. Definitely. I mean, you save money, you can see problems, but we've also got to think about people that are new to guitar, that are buying their first guitar today and don't yet have that experience.
Yes.
In which case, I think I would kind of push towards maybe something like Sweetwater, where you've got that excellent return policy. We didn't even talk about going to a store. Obviously, for a while we were all buying online. Now we're going to stores more again, and that's. I mean, you can go to Sweetwater in person. So I wish I could go there. That'd be cool, something like that. But yeah, I mean, bad experiences can happen with anything. But I'm sorry to hear you had that, Vic. You have to understand people are selling these guitars for a reason. Well, that's another good point. This is great. I've thought about this in the past as well. Why are you selling that guitar? So up for sale is Jim's Stratocaster. It's the best Stratocaster he ever played, and he's so sad to see it go, and he'll never find one like this again. So that's a good thing, isn't it? Okay, if it's that good, why are you selling it? That has crossed my mind before as well, and I'm sure it crosses people's mind when I'm selling my guitars too. But why are you selling that? Like, you haven't really played it, so what's wrong with it? So
it's a good question, and one thing that I see as a red flag in any listing is when somebody is talking up a guitar that much. Then I know something's wrong with it. If somebody lists a Telecaster and says, I'll never be able to replace this guitar, it's the perfect one, everything about it is perfect, then it doesn't add up at that point. Unless you're going to be evicted from your house and something like of that serious nature, it's really tough. And I try to take the emotions out of it. So when I see people trying to use emotion, whether it's a good or a bad, to sell a product, it kind of sours my view on the thing. I like it to just be like, this is what it is. If you want more detailed information, we can have more detailed information. But there was one comment that came up that I want to address. And it was about having the really bad experience to use. I agree with that, but that doesn't mean that it can't happen new. I had from Dave's Guitar Shop, one of the custom shop guitars I got a deal on was a Fender Custom Shop Mustang. Now, this person ordered this guitar through the Fender Custom Shop, the exact way they wanted it, perfect, right? Takes 8 months or whatever for Fender to process the order. It comes and the paint's just wrong. Like, they didn't get it right at all. So it wasn't the right color. So they're going to send the guitar back. Okay. They send the guitar back. It comes back. All of the hardware is swapped and different. Now, we're at a year at this point. So they send it back. It comes back the third time. The hardware's still wrong, the colors of it, but now there's a ding in the finish that was not there the first 2 times. So even somebody who spent $3,800 and waited over a year and a half from the Fender Custom Shop, as good as you're going to get for production, it can happen. It can happen. And to me, that's like, that makes me never want to order from the Fender Custom Shop as far as, doing it on my own. I'd rather just buy somebody else's problem after they're ready to sell it.
Well, doesn't that tie back to what I said earlier? Like those Harley Bentons that I got, and that one, if I sell that Harley Benton Strat, whoever buys that is getting a great, I mean, maybe I should offer it to someone who watches my show, because it's like, whoever gets that from me is getting an incredibly good deal, right? Because it's I've put so much work and time into it.
That's what I do. That's what I do. Specifically with the Harley Bentons. I try not to sell those on Reverb. What I do is I wait for, because a lot of those videos always get a lot of clicks. You know that. Whenever you do Harley Benton stuff, it's one of those topics that people love.
I haven't actually made the review yet, because I've been cleaning them up still, so I haven't actually made the reviews yet. But I see them getting views. Yeah, people like affordable gear. That's why. And I've got to say that the Fusion Harley Benton is excellent as a guitar. It's excellent. Oh, the jack went as well, by the way. But that's simply a case of taking the jack out, tightening it, putting it back in again. But I want to put in my video that, if you are new to guitar, these things might be a problem, right? If the frets are all scratchy and there's fret sprout and the jack is loose, okay, if Tomanoff would have it fixed up, that's one thing. But I think I'd rather a new player get something out of the box that's just right. But I've also had high-end guitars arrive here that had big problems as well. But because I bought new for so long, I just shipped them right back. I mean, Sweetwater, I've had some problems with guitars from Sweetwater, but their service has always made me happy and made it right. And that's something that I might not get buying used unless I buy, like you said, a guitar from you where you've actually gone through and done it. I think what this is saying is we need someone to look at the guitar and actually assess it and move it on as well, which is why it's good to maybe still to buy from a good store where they do that. I don't know, but I also just think there's risks in everything. I don't think we can just say, look, if you buy new, it'll be perfect. If you buy used, it won't. I mean, it's just, there can be problems with anything. Shipping, where you buy it from. There's so many factors here that can go into this. So, yeah.
No, you're dead on. You're dead on. And it's one of those things where there's no right answer. There's no... Yeah. New is 100% the best way to go. Used is 100% the best way to go. There's a lot of variables. Depends what you like. Depends what your budget is. And there's just a lot to think about.
Well, that's why we're talking about it. That's why I like to talk about it. And after all these years of doing the YouTube videos, the more videos I make, the more I think there is less of an answer, actually, which is an interesting thing. But there's also other things like me. Like, I used to buy new guitars. Like I said, I want them brand new out the box, perfect condition. If there's a scratch on there, I'll be really upset. But the people watching know I've been talking about this year. I want to get an authentic Martin aged. That means they're going to put dings in the guitar and charge an extra $1,000 for it. So again, am I crazy? Yes, because here's a guy that would only want something immaculate and wouldn't even want to get their first ding on the guitar, who's now looking at spending money to get dings on a guitar. So there we go. That's a personal thing. I think like some people want that, some people don't, some people change their minds. But that's a whole new video. Let's save that for another time.
Yes.
Let me just go back to chat. Dylan Talks Tone is here. Good to see you, buddy. Thanks for being here. Mark Henry says, good afternoon, everybody. Matthew Carver says, I've sold guitars to fund other ones, or maybe the neck shape wasn't working for me. Yeah, but I was thinking about that too. I've done that too. I've sold guitars because I thought the neck shape wasn't right for me, and then a few years later I've wanted that neck shape again, or it's been less of a problem. I think that's something we have to bear in mind as well, that our mind may change over time as well. But again, that's getting away from the topic. Is that Staley Explores? I agree 100% with Jim.
With which part?
So everything. So that's fine. You're good.
I'll take it.
Hippie says, hi. Seriously on point, but finding the niche hurts at times. Finding the niche hurts at times.
That is the tough part. That's absolutely the hardest part if you're going to start buying and selling guitars, is finding the right niche and not going into a market where somebody else already has a stranglehold on it. Just put yourself behind the 8 ball.
We got a lot of good comments here. Look, Bimo, good point, because this is something that's just come up. Actually, I need to address this. How much can you make before IRS wants a chunk? Now, okay, we're all going to pay tax, but the thing is, Reverb are now saying once you've made over $600 on Reverb, they're going to send the tax form to you. And this is actually something I haven't figured out yet, because I've gone over that this year, and I need to make sure that I have the documentation. So at the end of the year, when they said you sold, like, let's just make up a number, you made $5,000 excess of 600, you're gonna have to pay tax on that. I have to show the receipts to show actually, well, I bought them in the first place, so I might owe a little bit, I might not. If I made a bit of money, lost a bit of money. So there's that to navigate. That's a new thing, isn't it, what Reverb are doing now with that? So that's something to bear in mind when you're buying, even if you're not just buying and selling for profit, even if you're just buying and selling for your personal collection, you have to bear that in mind, that you may have to pay tax on that money if you make profit at the end of the year as well. So that is worth bearing in mind. It's made it a bit more confusing and complicated, hasn't it? Well, at least for me, like on Reverb.
It has, but it hasn't really changed anything. The thing is, if you were a shop, you were doing this beforehand. This wasn't anything new. You had to file, otherwise what you were doing is tax fraud or tax evasion. So you had to do that. But the thing that a lot of people, I don't think the majority of people need to be concerned about this, because yes, it is scary now, because it used to be $20,000 before Reverb would send you a tax form on your behalf, the 1099K. But now that it's $600, people are like, well, now I'm afraid to buy and sell, because what if I owe money on this? The majority of the time, you're going to offset losses or come so close to like even, so to speak, or, be in the negative that you're not going to, most people are not going to owe. The average person buying and selling gears is not gonna that's not doing it for a profit or for a living.
But you have to keep your original receipts, because otherwise, if you sell 5 guitars and Reverb say, well, you took in 10 grand this year, then you're gonna have to, you're responsible for that. Now, what you said is a good point. That's the truth. Like when Sweetwater started to collect sales tax, we were always supposed to declare that money. It's just they started to collect it, and it's the same with Reverb. You're always supposed to declare profit that you've made, but now Reverb is sending the documentation for you. But you've just got to make sure you have that proof, because if you don't have your original receipts, you're going to have to be responsible for all that money, right?
Yes, and this is funny. I'll send this to you after, but every guitar that I buy online, whether it's especially from used, I screenshot it. I screenshot it for a few reasons, just so I know the exact specs and all that stuff. I still have screenshots of Dave's Guitar Shop from like 2011, 2012. I was just looking at what I paid for a pink Paisley Telecaster the other day, and I paid $600 for it. If I had that guitar now, I'd be looking at $2,000. So I just find it funny, but I don't know. I take things seriously like that, because you have to just cover your butt, because if you don't have the receipts, and what I'm very interested to see here is, what happens to the people who bought these guitars, say in the 60s or in the 70s? You're expected to still have that receipt? What if you just wanted to get out of it? You can cash in on a guitar, all of a sudden it's worth a lot. What do you do? How do you prove that? You're not going to, there's no paper trail from back then. So I don't know how they're going to kind of judge that. That's the gray area. Those are the people that I'm concerned for. Because the modern stuff, you can always really dig back through credit card transactions and you can get there. But back in the day, those people that didn't have that, good luck. Good luck explaining that to the IRS.
I'm not a tax expert, but that's a good point. If you've got something that's from the past. Yeah, that's worth considering, yeah. Jim, I got your question, but I can't address it today because I want to stay on topic, okay? So ask me next time we do a live stream. No, not you, Jim, the other Jim. He says, can we go through how to set up the live stream stuff? We have to finish at 5, so I need to stay on topic, Jim, but that's Jim B. But ask me on a future stream. I'll go over that with you, no problem. And there was a comment here from Jansen. I'm a UPS store owner. If it's over $1,000, you need to go through UPS corporate.
Yes, that's the exact lesson that I learned, and that was obviously a very hard lesson, but if you own a franchise, they max out at $1,000. So you have to go to either corporate, or you schedule a pickup from a UPS driver. They have 2 sheets of paperwork that they'll sign, basically saying they acknowledge that they're picking up this of this value, and then you keep a document for yourself.
So I'm just reading the comments here.
That's okay.
Look, Poo Ninja, just one more. Lewis, I damaged my Yamaha guitar and I still enjoy my life. I know, I learned all this stuff too late. That's why we're doing this, to tell others our experiences. Hippie said, hit that thumbs up. Yes, please do. That's what made me laugh there. One day Lewis wants to sniff a Martin sound hole. Don't forget to put sound hole in there, Lewis. Or it makes me laugh. Use is always better. Good evening, Aaron, Jim, and everyone from England, UK. Jim is smart. Okay. This is a friend of yours, is it?
I was going to say, I don't know which family member of mine you are that found this stream, but I appreciate it.
Appreciate both your opinions. Okay. Okay, well, talk about selling then. After what we just spoke about, is it worth selling guitars at all? The question. No, it's just a joke. It's just a joke.
Yeah.
That's just a joke. There's a lot to factor in now. You know, it's not just a matter of buy and sell, and let's address that now.
Sure.
Important question. This is something, I'm trying to downsize, believe it or not. I'm trying to downsize, and I've got this thing of like, I want to review some guitars, sell them, maybe get sell 3 guitars, get 1 guitar, do that kind of upgrade, right? But how do you know if you should sell a guitar? Because in the last few years, I rebought guitars that I'd sold because I missed them. So how do you know if you actually should sell that guitar? Like if you really just don't want it anymore, because you don't want to regret it and then want to buy it back in 5 years and they don't make them anymore, or the price has gone up or something like that. So how do you know if you actually, like, let's take the guitar behind me, right? So I haven't played it for a couple of weeks. Some people would say if you haven't played it for a couple of weeks, you should sell it. which I won't because I love this guitar. But how do I know if I'm just taking this as an example? If I'm considering selling that one, then how have you got any thoughts on how to know if it's time for it to go or not?
Okay. Now, you've made this a little bit easier, and I can make this a little more focused of an answer because I know what that guitar is. That's an American Professional Stratocaster,
Because I told you before we started.
I know, no, but really, it does. This makes a difference in the answer. If it's a guitar that is mass-produced, that you can replace, that does not have gigantic sentimental value. If I have a guitar like that and I don't play it for a month, it is gone, period, at this point. Now, obviously, that doesn't include some guitars. Like, I happen to like offset guitars, like Jaguars, Mustangs, and Jazzmasters. Those guitars, the ones that I like are all the vintage spec ones, the American vintages and some of the custom shop ones. Those ones you might not be able to get again. So it makes it a much more difficult thing. Again, it's one of those topics where there's no definitive right answer. But in my book, if you can replace the guitar or you know, get a comparable model to it, still new, or Fender still offers it, for example, and you know, you just don't love it anymore, you're still going to be able to find it. You know, I think about guitars like American Standards. You could still find those for $900 to $1,000 used all day if you know where to look, and they're great guitars. But you know, something like a one-off, you're gonna have right. Like if I sell that blue Jaguar, I'm not getting it back unless I'm going to spend almost double in a few years. So it's all just part of the equation.
I agree. Actually, the guitars that I am hanging on to is like I've got a Noel Gallagher Gibson Signature. They only made 200, so I'm not selling that. I actually believe, Jim, that when I went to the Gibson garage, I played a J200 for less money that I think may even be better. But let's just say one day I wake up and think, oh, I missed that. I'll never get it back again. You know, I got it from Gibson direct. I'll never get it back. So this guitar is very light, and all the ones I see on Sweetwater are around 8 pounds. This is like under 7.5 pounds. So for that reason, I don't want to let it go either. So it's interesting, but there's definitely guitars where I know they should go because I haven't played them, I don't need them, and yet I kind of convinced myself not. Have you ever done that? Like, so I wake up and think, right, I'm going to go down to one acoustic, one electric. Oh, but I better just keep a backup, and I better just keep one for different tuning, and I better just keep one for humbuckers. I better keep one for single. I better keep one for H, and then you end up right back where I started. So yeah, I don't know. That was kind of a joke question in a way, but yeah, it's got merit. How much is your instrument worth? How do you know the actual value? So again, let's say I want to sell this. How do I figure out what I should sell it for? What are the factors for that?
Depends where you want to sell it. If you want to sell it on Reverb, there are tools that you can see. You don't want to look at what they actually are listed for. That's not going to teach you anything. All that's going to show is just something that's available for sale. You can narrow it down to previous sales that have happened. It will tell you what they sold for and the condition that the guitar was in, and also kind of a time frame of it. So if a guitar sold 2 years ago for $500, that really doesn't mean anything to you in this current market. So you just have to take this data and kind of do with it into the modern sense. And there's so many good things about Reverb when you are rebuying. If you don't know anything, there's a lot of good resources, and that's one of the best ones you can use. But what I like to do is I like to gauge kind of the high parts of Reverb, like for the excellent ones, and then I'll try to sell it less than that by a few $100s locally before I do anything else. And the reason I'll do that is because you can show on the listing, you just take a screenshot on the Craigslist listing or whatever you want to post it locally online, whatever you use, and be like, this is what this guitar has sold for very recently. Look, you don't want to pay sales tax. I don't want to have to deal with anything like that. Let's meet in the middle. You get a good deal. I get a good deal. Everybody's happy, you know? And that's the only way to avoid the tax man, is to do things in face-to-face and with cash.
I didn't say that. Jim said that. I don't avoid any tax.
I don't encourage it. I'm just saying it's the only way.
Yeah, okay.
It's the only way to do that.
Speaking of which, I got to file my taxes soon, so that'll be a fun week next week.
It's not fun. I already did mine.
All right, Hippie says, I need an acoustic that sounds like a baritone, but not a baritone. Wow, okay. You don't ask so much, do you, Hippie? And not so tinny and jangly for 600. Any suggestion? the acoustic that sounds like a baritone, but it's not. I'm actually going to be talking about baritones in a few weeks' time. Baritone acoustics, hippie, but that's not. It's not going to be $600. And I don't have much experience with baritone acoustic guitars. That's why I'm excited to talk about them soon. But you don't want a baritone. You want a guitar that sounds like a baritone. So I would say probably like the Dreadnought and stick 13 gauge on there, so you get a bigger sound if that's what you're looking for and want to down tune. But I honestly don't know if that even exists, to be honest with you.
I don't think it does. That seems like something that's the first time I've ever seen something like that. A baritone that sounds like a baritone that is not a baritone.
For $600.
Yeah, and the price actually, yeah. I don't know. Maybe somebody should make it.
Yeah, or maybe someone in the chat knows. Hang on. Another question. What is your favorite guitar? If you'd like to pick one, says Zane. What's your favorite guitar?
Favorite or I guess favorite. It has to be my JV Stratocaster. I've had that guitar. It was a 1982 made in Japan 57 reissue. I've had that guitar. I bought that on a fluke, not knowing what it was at a local guitar shop, and now they're worth a lot of money. But that guitar, I could never sell that guitar. And that's the only exception to my if I don't play it for a month rule. That guitar is just never getting sold. Period. That's my favorite.
Just going through the chats here.
Yeah, tax.
Yeah. I do it. I leave it till the last minute. I don't do it throughout the year. So listing everything actually would be a good live stream to do. I know it sounds incredibly boring, but a lot of people, not just musicians, a lot of people in business don't know what they can claim for. You can claim for haircuts, right? Because if you're a performer and you have your haircut, you can claim for it. A lot of people don't know this stuff. Phone bills, office space. It is really dull and boring, but it could potentially save people a lot of money, so it'd be a good thing to do. Sorry, I'm being quick. We've got 8 minutes left, so I'm being quick.
No,
here.
you're fine.
Can you go over a little bit or not?
I got a few minutes, yeah.
Okay, we'll go over a bit. And also, stay tuned anyway, because once Jim does go, I'm going to stay on and tell you who next week's guest is. And I know a lot of people here in the chat are going to be very excited for next week as well, so stay tuned for that. They're talking about Lee just bought a parlor guitar. So yeah, Lee bought a guitar from the 19th century. That's a whole new thing, because at that point, if it's an acoustic guitar, which we already said is kind of fragile, and it's really old, then the thing about that is, I mean, I would want someone to look at it, I think, but that could have stuff, right? I bought a guitar once and it had like loose braces and things like that, so I want to have that looked at, I think. Obviously, the older you go, the more careful you've got to be, right? Because it's just older.
Yeah, I had a friend buy a guitar from 1890, I believe it was, that was made in Valencia, Spain, and bought it sight unseen because the price was too good, and it still needs work to this day, and it's just one of those things. But it's almost like he looks at it like a museum piece, so it just sits kind of in a very nice case that he built for it.
Jansen has a 1955 J200. That's cool. Has become sentimental in the last 2 years. There you go. So I bet you would never sell that, because how are you going to rebuy that guitar again, right?
You don't.
That's a good point. Okay, so where can we list stuff for sale? I usually go to like Reverb, the obvious places. I couldn't sell a guitar a few months ago. It was up for months, and then it just sold overnight. But I was really surprised that Reverb didn't really work, and eBay. I even tried eBay. Didn't really work, and I sold a camera on Facebook Marketplace, and I got so many scam messages come through. I was getting really. I was like, I just want to sell these things, this camera and this guitar for a fair price, and get out the door. And it was just really stressful, because I think there's a lot of that. There's so many people buying and selling there. There's so many kind of scams to look out for as well, especially on like on the Facebook thing. And I haven't used like Craigslist for a long time. I've got a cheap Yamaha that I just put on there. Didn't even get a single message. Are there other? I mean, those places can work, and they do work. That's why we use them. But are there other places that's good to sell guitars? Like I said to you earlier, Sweetwater actually have a used section that a lot of people don't know about. Obviously, because people don't know about it, there's less traffic there, so it's not as good as the others, maybe. But is there anywhere else? I use forums quite a lot, like the Gear Page, places like that. I've used quite successfully, because you can connect with the person direct. You can see how long they've been on the forum, and that sometimes you know them because they've been posting in the forum. Is there anywhere else that you could suggest that we list guitars for sale?
No, the one thing I want to hit back on, a place you mentioned and I would stay away from with all of my power, and that is the Facebook Marketplace. Because you're just going to get inundated with so much spam. It's not worth it. It's really, really not. One thing you can do if you're afraid of selling guitars on forums, I do this with whether I sell a guitar on Reverb, whether it's on a forum, or whether it's on my own website, which is another option if you're going to sell a bunch of stuff, and this is something maybe you should consider too. If you have a GoDaddy domain, adding a store to it is not expensive, like annually. So, and that fee is less than half of what Reverb takes. So it's just some food for thought here. People can use major credit cards, so they're protected. It's not like, there's nothing sketchy about it. But what I do is I videotape the entire process. And when I say that, I mean, I use the good lighting. I show with the DSLR the exact condition of the guitar. I plug in the guitar so that you can hear all the pickups working. And then you watch me pack the thing up. And literally, so there's no guesswork. There's no anything like that. Insure it for the full value. I've never had to use any of these, thankfully. I've never had to actually use this as evidence, but it's a way to protect yourself. It's free. You don't need to have a professional rig to do that. Just use your camera phone. You know what I mean? And it just shows that you did everything you needed to do on your end. And the only problem is now we go back to the taxes, and that is it's a little bit less appealing to some people because, if I sell something on Venmo or on PayPal through a forum, they're going to want me to provide the same documentation of what I paid for it at the end of the year, akin to Reverb. So this is going to be a very different year for people that do this, but that's one way that you can do it and make a little bit more money in your pocket.
I think they always have. I've got my family buy and sell other stuff, and they've had that as well, or they've heard about people having it. Once you sell a certain amount of things, then the light goes off for those people when they see what you're up to. I guess it depends really how many you sell and buy and things like that as well. But I mean, it's interesting. It was actually Dylan Talks Tone that told me this first, and then Jeremy the Guitar Hunter. I noticed from when we went on his website last week, I believe they sell guitars to the viewers. That's something I didn't really consider before as well. Like Lee's in the UK, but let's take Lee for an example. Like he's been on the channel a long time. He's always here. We kind of. I wouldn't say we know each other, but he knows me more than a random person on Reverb.com. So if I had a guitar he wanted to buy off me, that might be. I mean, maybe new things will start to appear, like people selling direct and through YouTube. And I think I saw Henning last year did a video like I'm selling 30 things and here they are, kind of thing. So maybe selling direct. Maybe it's going a bit back to like the old days of Craigslist, where you would meet someone and just sell it to them directly. Although, of course, Craigslist now has gotten a bit, I've not had bad experiences, but it doesn't feel quite as safe to me as, say, Reverb. I quite like the idea of just shipping the guitar in a way, even though you've got the potential issues with that. I like the idea of just putting the box and saying, here you go, it's gone.
Yeah. I agree with you, and this is going to sound surprising because I'm losing the most amount of money on these guitars when I sell them. But the high-end guitars, I'd much rather sell on Reverb. I will take the $300 out of whatever. They want to take their cut, but I don't have to worry about potentially, who knows what can happen in a situation like that. And this is, it's a kind of a crazy time, and depending on where you are in the world, if somebody knows what you have, then it's a little sketchy, you know what I mean? So with some items, it's not a big deal, as big of a concern for me to sell them locally. But the bigger stuff, I'd rather just not worry about it. I'll sell it on Reverb. I'll eat it. I'll eat the extra few $100.
It's very convenient, I got to say. It is a good service, and they charge for that. But
Yep.
And then BMO, I feel bad because BMO says, what's the price of a used Martin HG28 Retro in excellent condition? I think this is a joke because on every stream he has to bring up the Martin HG28 Retro. That's a guitar that I had and sold and regretted selling it. But it's an interesting model to this. I won't buy one now again. And the reason is, and we actually touched on this last week as well, it has a very intricate pickup system, which is great. It's made by Fishman. It's really great. But I don't think they make spares anymore. And this is something to factor in as well. When you buy a guitar like a 50s Strat, you can easily take that to someone and have it brought back to life, right? Whatever's done to it, you can have it brought back to life. If you buy something like a guitar, and again, nothing against these guitars because they're awesome, but it's just something to factor in if you're buying today. And the interesting thing with these retro guitars is I see them going for more than they were back in the day. And that could be because of inflation, because Martin's prices have gone up anyway. But let's say the 28 Retro was 24 back in the day. I see them now, people want like $3,000 for a used guitar because you can't get them anymore. So that's another thing to factor in. But I'm a bit scared about those because, again, if they die, you can't easily fix them. It's like a Acoustasonic, a Variax, even something like a pedal, like a Quad Cortex, whatever, right? Once they stop making them, you can't have it fixed anymore. So I think that's why people like the old stuff, the old 60s Strats and Martins, because they just fix them easily. But there's something to factor in, and it does make me, I can't think what the word is, but to see those guitars going now way above the original value when they're used, I'm a bit like, yeah, I get it, because you can't buy them anymore, but they're kind of older technology, and you can't, but maybe you can't buy the spare parts anymore, so why are you charging, I don't know. That's just what I think when I see that.
Yeah, and that the ethical part of it, that's a whole nother can of worms. Because there's people like, for example, when the John Mayers come out in the limited finish of that year, they sell for the regular price, and then they're immediately being resold for almost double in some cases, right on Reverb. And I don't do stuff like that, but I mean, it's hard to knock it because that's like free money. It's just, there's definitely some ethical things that need to be considered if you're going to be into the buying and selling of guitars.
I think the last few years that's become I don't have problems the right word, but you know, PS5, even like the new computers that come out, if something's limited, people buy it in order to sell it on. And like you said, that's a whole new topic there, because let's say I bought the Noel Gallagher. If I'd sold it the next day for a profit, is that good or I'm not gonna say everything is good or bad right now because we're gonna wrap things up. But is that good or bad? And if I buy it and sell it 3 years later and I've played it and gigged it, and then I sell it for a profit, is that any different? I don't know. We don't really have time. That's going to be bonus content for another time.
I do have to say this though. I have to say this because you brought up Noel Gallagher. I just bought in and sold in the last month the Manchester City Blue Epiphone.
No.
Do you know? I had never seen one in person. I had never seen one in person, so I was just like, I have to buy. Like, I have to buy this. I have to buy this.
Did you put it on your channel?
I'm a huge Oasis fan. No, that guitar was sold literally within, I think, an hour of me putting it up locally.
Can I ask you what it sold for?
When I got it.
Can I ask you what it sold for?
Too much.
Oh, okay.
Too much.
I
sold it for. Well, what did you see one for?
I saw one. I can't remember. I saw one the other day that I actually considered, but I wasn't going to get it. I honestly can't remember the price, but it was way above what they were again when they were released. But they're so hard to find now, and I love Noel Gallagher too.
I'll tell you what I paid. I paid $1,100 for it, and I sold it for $1,400 because I didn't realize how much more it was gonna. If I knew it was gonna go that quick, I wouldn't have listed it for that quick.
Yeah, I think the one I saw was 15 plus. I think. Where did you find? Where did you find it?
Tokyo, Japan.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. At one of the shops I normally shop for made in Japan.
Anything Oasis comes in the future? Anything Oasis, John Mayer, you give me a call, right?
Well, I actually think they have another one of those the Manchester City Blues. If you really want, I'll shoot you a message.
Send me a message. And you should check out you should make a video on that stuff too, because I don't know, are there Oasis fans? Well, the Noel Gallagher J150 got a lot of views. But again, was that because it was so limited? I don't know. Who knows, right?
Well, normally, that's only the second guitar this has happened to me with since I've started to do YouTube, where it's sold before I could film with it. I had that happen with a Japanese jazz master in the past, and then this Epiphone Noel Gallagher is the only other one. The majority of the time, like, I'll kind of take a day or two, and if I list it, I don't have to worry about somebody immediately clicking it and being like, I will be at your door right now to buy this. It doesn't normally work like that. Yeah. So I have the time to film it, but this one, I didn't have the time to do it.
Did you have time to play it?
Cool guitar.
You liked it?
Yeah, I played it a little bit.
Okay, good.
Nice neck. Nice neck.
This is a good way to wrap things up. They're asking what your website address is, where you sell stuff, and how to get in touch with you.
You just go to audiomomusic.com. And there's a shop up right there right now. That has to be updated. My wife typically is the one that updates the inventory, but that hasn't gotten done in about a week. So right now I got a few guitars for sale, mostly Fender custom shops. But yeah, I'll update that tonight as soon as I get home. Because the only reason I have to end this early is I got to pick up my little princess, my little toddler from school. Otherwise, I could stay. I could talk about guitars and all this stuff all day. This is
well,
fun.
I think we should do it again. I think it's been very successful. It's been great. I've really enjoyed it. So let's do another topic another time. I'm here on Mondays, so I'll be in touch and we'll do it again. Sound good?
Thank you for having me, Aaron, and thanks for all you guys for hanging out and and asking the questions and interacting. I love being parts of stuff like this. It's some of my favorite things that I do on YouTube.
It's been great. I'm gonna stay online a bit longer to wrap things up and tell everyone who's the next week's guest is. But Jim, it's been great to meet you. Let's do it again soon. All right.
All right. Thank you again, Aaron. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye bye. Awesome. Come back over here. All right. Thank you, everybody. That was great. That was Jim, Audiomo Music. I've seen some of his videos, and I'm trying to get different guests on each week. And I reached out and said, "Would you like to be a guest?" He said yes, and I really enjoyed that because, like we said, it's very hard to find a definitive answer to this stuff. I mean, there's no such thing as a definitive answer to a lot of these questions, right? Of course. But I think it's really great to talk about it with somebody else in person and get their experiences. And I learned a lot today as well, which is great. I hope you did too. Right. No, don't leave yet, David Belcher. I'm going to tell you who next week's guest is. And I think you're going to be really excited for this. So next week's guest is... Are you ready? I think I need a drum roll for this one. I reached out and I've confirmed this. Of course, if anything changes, I will update you in the community section. So do subscribe and ring the bell for these updates, future videos and notifications. If there's any change, I will still be here. I'm not saying this won't happen next week, by the way, but if let's say something happened, I would still be here to do the Q&A. But as of right now, I have a guest lined up for next Monday, 4 p.m. EST, and it's going to be... Thomas Ripsum, the new CEO of Martin Guitar. I'll see you then. Take care. Bye-bye.